Oh, you're
Okay, well
wonderful.
well first we'll say hello everyone.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome to the show. We have Dave and Carla back. And they wrote a new book. It's called The Manual. Betsy's ground through it. I have not read it yet, but let's be honest.
I may have to read it for him.
She
like
may
story time.
She'll read it to me at bedtime. And I'm working nights now, so she's gonna have to stay up late. But but so how do you think, you just talked about, now you guys have been in all your reincarnations have been tied together almost all the time in one variable or another. How does that change as the different life circumstances, as you come in and out of different lives? Like, one's from Ohio and a very, I guess you'd call it Leave It to Beaver life. The other one had a strict English mother and probably made you eat, call cookies biscuits or something. I don't know, whatever they did. So how does that change the relationship coming in and out of the different lives?
Well, I think that's really an interesting question, Jared. It's, for everybody, when you meet somebody new, there's some sort of feeling that comes over you, a familiarity. And so for us, in each life, there seems to be something that we're comfortable with. And even in this life, we had an interesting story that we told the first time that, we actually met when we were 3 and 4 years old on a beach in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And then didn't meet each other. Yeah, in this life, and didn't meet again for 38 years or 35 years.
And
then
still
walked
super
in.
Interesting the way you guys even coalesced after 35 years, just by happenstance.
Yeah, we, I became a nurse, and then I went back to medical school. I was from Nebraska, then Iowa, somehow made it to a residency in Ohio, had to start a practice somewhere, walked in, and Carla was sitting there. And we sat outside of her house in some lawn chairs because she was the office manager. And we sat and talked, and some of the pictures from then, it looks like we had known each other for 100,000 years. Well, as it turned out, we'd been in 29 past lives together, and we had known each other for 6,000. And we started talking, and we could just talk endlessly, regardless of her Boston accent and her English mother. She's really very personable, and we just became best friends almost immediately. So I think there's something there, and some in our third book, The Manual, we start talking about how things are planned that draw us together. And it's interesting if you start looking at science, and I always look at science stuff because, A, I suppose I went to school long enough that I got exposed to enough, and B, because I'm just a curious guy. But when you start looking at the science things, and I'm not one that believes that quantum physics describes the spiritual world, but it describes things that occur in this physical world. And, it talks about entanglement, which is where two particles that are not in the same place are somehow drawn together. So some of this is coordinated. Some of this is drawn. We're drawn either by an entanglement, some sort of energy force. People start talking about antimatter, and they don't really know that antimatter exists, but they have a theory because the bigger something is, like the Earth has a lot of gravity, the sun has a lot of gravity, the bigger it gets. Well, there's gravity that exists with no mass. So they believe that that's antimatter, but that's something that's pulling you on. So there are forces in our universe that pull on us. There are forces in nature that pull on us. And somehow Carla and I keep getting pulled right back together. And we talk about that in all of the books, that there certainly are family mates and karmic mates or your soul group that you get drawn back to all the time. And we're apparently family mates because we're drawn together, because we work well together. We've become close in all of our lives, sometimes in different manners, because she's been my mother, my wife, my love interest, and my sister, and my next door neighbor. So
And
it
Dave,
becomes, yeah,
can I just say that, we talk about this in the manual. Betsy, you already know this, but being drawn together. First, let me say to Jared that Dave tells me, because, Dave has this gift, he can go in and relive these lives, that I am very similar in all of the lives. Historically it's a little bit different, but my personality is very similar, and his personality is very similar. But besides that, we're created with an astrological sign, a trait, an archetype that also is assigned to us, and it's assigned in a way that draws us again. And then besides that, our book isn't the traditional when it comes to talking about astrological signs. We also talk about elementals, and we talk about modifiers, things that God places on us to make us draw to people that either are our family mates or are our karmic mates. So there's several ways to draw us together. And if we are consistently, now, I was never an axe murderer in our life before, but that would just be something that I did. That wouldn't be my personality. But if I have the same similar personality, and Dave sort of has the same similar personality, then we're naturally drawn, besides the astrological sign, besides the trait, the archetype. And in many of our lives, Dave and I have been the same astrological sign, although it isn't the case all the time and not with everybody. So that does draw us and make us a certain way.
Now you guys you met when you were both toddlers on
yes.
a beach, and but you guys went, what was it? If I remember, it was something like 40 years or
35 years till we met again.
yeah. And then you guys met and just kind of flowed together, just worked well together.
And just worked well together. And what really happened is Carla was my office manager at the office, and I became super stressed when we started electronic medical records. And she said, "You've got to do something to calm down." And she came in and said, "Maybe we could try some meditation." And so we started meditating, and we started to have experiences, and we actually met 4 individuals relatively early during meditation, which connected us to the spiritual world. We met Carla's mother very early, and it was a very strange story because I'm sitting there meditating, and afterwards all we had been doing is relaxing, and then I had to tell her, "Carla, I think I'm talking to your mother." And she showed me a shoe, and she was talking about how your eyelashes are the same, and she was happy and jovial. And Carla brought up on the computer screen 60 pair of shoes, and I walked over and said, "That's the shoe." And Carla tried to explain it to me, and I was just sitting there going, "I don't know why I saw this shoe."
And Dave, my mother had passed like 18 years before this. He never met her. And she was a ballroom dancer. And she wore this particular type of shoe. So for him to get this, this corroborated that he was talking to somebody. He couldn't possibly have known what type of shoe my mother was wearing, having never met her. And it wasn't a normal conversation. And I should say, going back, when we met in Boston, I probably wasn't the nicest to him because I pushed him down, told him to be quiet, sat on his chest and kissed him on the forehead. I don't know if that was the prerequisite to us getting along or not, but we didn't stay in touch all of those years, but we just hit it off. But that day when he started to talk to my mother, I was like, "Why are you talking to my mother? Why is she talking to you and not me?" And of course, we've found since then that, Dave would have been my big brother. He was my mother's first miscarriage, and
Mm.
he would have been my big brother, which would have drawn us together one more time. And but anyway,
Oh,
go ahead, Dave.
And I guess we should have said, talking to her mother during meditation was a strange experience for me. I was raised Catholic. I didn't really think that was actually possible, but her mother had died 20 years before. So I guess we should tell the listeners who didn't see the first time we were on, the fact that her mother had passed away and was talking to me, and then Carla said, "Yes, that's the shoe. She was a ballroom dancer. That's the same shoe she wore." And then Carla's sister worked in the office too and ran in and showed me a picture, and I was like, "This is the lady that I saw while I was meditating." We kept meditating. We kept having more and more of these experiences. We had an experience where I remembered being shot in an alley, and I could see Carla across the alley, and she was dressed like a flapper, and she still had the same beautiful steel blue eyes, maybe a few years younger than she is now.
I remember that. Weren't you like a mobster?
I wasn't a mobster.
Well-
I was a junior banker, but she was owned by a mobster.
Yeah. I remember a mobster in that story.
Yeah, and those who we are in the past, it's really entertaining, but of course there's a reason for it. There's a purpose. In that particular life, I had karma with the mobster. And then I end up marrying him in this life. He was my first husband. And so on my part, I have fixed the karma between us. And in the manual, we talk about how God gives us these traits and archetypes and elementals and astrological signs to help us get off of the wheel of karma.
How do
Because
we know when we're off the wheel? Is there like a bell or something?
Well, Betsy,
you'll know when you get up there.
So Betsy, that's really the purpose of writing all the books that we do. We wrote The Gift of Past Lives with Mother Isabella, Guide, and Elizabeth, Hell No, and now the manual. And the real reason we're doing that, because if you follow some of the rules in all the books, you actually get off of this wheel, this karmic wheel that is, we keep making ego choices that are poor choices based on conceit, selfishness, jealousy, and unforgiveness. And we're not making the decisions being forgiving, and making the decisions out of love or learning the compassion part of life. And we really have to learn those things to get off this wheel. If you keep making the same mistakes, you're going to keep getting some of the same lessons. And what we did in all of the books is we've written what we did wrong in some of those lives and how we should have been different.
Because we're still here.
And so we could be slow learners, or we could be what everybody is, that you have to go through enough experiences to learn enough lessons that you come back complete again. Because you're really created complete and perfect. But we come down here and we have to survive. And to survive, we do the fight for the fittest, and if we're the best we can, in those first lives thousands of years ago, if you could run down a chicken and kill it with your bare hands, you won. Now, I'm from Iowa. That's still a skill. But I don't think from Boston that running down a chicken and killing it with your bare hands is a skill.
No, it's grabbing a lobster.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, but you get through the point where you have to kill and beat your neighbor and do all of those things. Society is getting better and better. I know many people are so worried about how horrible they think the world is right now, but we're actually in a world now that is the least violent, the least poverty. Very few people go to bed hungry. Even the developing nations have way more food than they used to. We're actually to the point where it's trying to get food to them because we have enough food to feed everyone. So it's really the transportation cost and the gas output and the your
The
footprint,
logistics
all
end.
that carbon footprint stuff to get the food to them that's limiting us now, because we actually produce enough food on the earth to feed everyone. So the world is actually in the best. There's no war, no big wars. Yes, we have terrorism, we have those things, but we've actually learned so many lessons that the world in general is still progressing to the point where we're now working with cooperation. And even if you get on Facebook and all of those things, the discussions people are now having are based on, should we be making decisions on tribalism, which we really should be over, or making decisions based on cooperation, which is where we're at now in the world.
Yeah,
If we can make
it's up until last year, we had been on a constant climb of safety and security. Last year
Correct.
threw a hinge in there because, whatever the reason, we don't need to go into that, but it threw a hinge in there. We actually had a little bit of a dip. But
Yes.
it seems like the world now is looking for threats. People are generally looking for threats, different groups. So they're tribalizing more and fracturing. I think we need to release the wolves. We need something that actually eats people on the earth again, so that then we'll get along.
Okay.
Or at least our
Jared,
focus will change.
And part of past lives is learning some experiences. I think your idea is good, but in
Yeah,
the
you're
past,
on with the wolves. I like it.
yes.
Now,
Yes.
I personally like a good gray wolf. It's good neutral color. There are black wolves and different ones, and the eye colors change. But a good gray wolf, I think, is ideal.
Is ideal. Well, we're gonna try to let the wolves have their space, okay? Because we need all of nature to be normal. And so I suppose, Jared, if you're out hiking in Utah and a wolf eats you, that's okay. But I don't know that you're the problem that we want the wolf to eat.
We need trained wolves. That's what Dave is saying.
Trained wolves. Wolves that pinpoint. Okay, so I've got the karmic will, the will of your lives. Oh, can you still hear us okay?
Yep,
Yeah.
can hear you fine.
Okay, good. Maybe they're, but everyone talks, when we research this stuff, they talk about trying to get off it to reach nirvana or whatever, to achieve that level of enlightenment to where you're not recycled back. And I sit here and life has its struggles, but I enjoy it. I enjoy life. I enjoy kind of the struggle, and I enjoy the experience of it. Is there like say in the between lives area, is there a draw? They show you something that makes you decide you don't want to run this down again?
Yes, Jared. It's hard to explain this to people, but there's sort of two things at issue here. The two issues are, when you're there in the time between, there are no wants or needs. You have everything. So there is no suffering. There's only joy and happiness. There's only a oneness or experience with God that is there. And it is so beautiful. And part of our earthly experience is the fact that you're learning what it's like to struggle and overcome. Because without the struggle and overcome, it's hard to appreciate how good it is.
So do you
If
think
you've always had everything,
do you think our souls, in a sense, are yearning for that feeling of enough while we're here? And that causes some of our strife?
absolutely. We're missing that connection to God, source, creator, Tao, whatever people like to call it. You're missing that connection. So it feels like something's not right. You're not here. You know, a lot of times I'll say the reality is we're all foreign to the world. It's not normal. It's something different. Now there's some interesting thought in again the science world is the soul that doesn't want or need has no experience. And we don't come here just for experience. We come here to learn. We have to overcome. But without experience, we have no shared communication. Shared experiences give us shared communication. If we understand what suffering is, we understand that we're not suffering when we're there. How can I communicate to Carla on a spiritual level when I'm not in this world, when I'm in the unseen realm, or if I'm in the world that's the spirit world or heaven, if you want to call it that? How do I communicate joy if there's no comparison, if there's only joy? You know, we have shared experiences, so we have shared communication, we have shared language. If you get to heaven, even if all communication is telepathic, what picture are you sharing if you're not sharing your past experience? So there's a our so someday when I'm sitting with Carla and we're having coffee in heaven, I can be thinking and I can say, you know, I remember that and that was joyful, but it's nothing as good as it is now.
There's coffee in heaven.
Yeah, I
There
was
has
about
to
to
be.
throw down.
Okay, Betsy, I'm pretty sure there's coffee at heaven because that first cup of coffee is heavenly in the morning.
Yes.
Mhm. Ba-dum-bum.
Or,
But Jared, most NDEers say they don't want to come back.
Yeah.
And they're told you've got to come back because you're not finished. You have more to learn. So that in itself, if you can imagine being in a place that you don't think about bills, you don't think about mud in the basement. Now that's all adversity. And Jared, you seem like a rather well-rounded guy that can take lemons and make lemonade.
Well, I don't
But
know. I wouldn't go that far. I can take lemons and make a face.
but in this life, maybe it's not so bad. But imagine being, somebody born, a Jewish person born and having to live through the Holocaust. Do
Hmm.
you think that, some of them probably found a silver lining, but we've all had lives like that. Fortunately, right now, like Dave said earlier, the majority of the world isn't living those experiences.
Oh
Now,
yeah,
some
first.
people have their own demons. They have an abusive relationship, but there's help for those abusive relationships now. Where years ago, when my grandfather was beating on my grandmother, if you called the police came and said, "It's domestic, fix it." But
Mhm.
now you have some outlets to help you through those. But I don't think I want to go through that. And I want to learn my lessons because I want to get out of Dodge. It's got to be better up there
Yeah.
or over there,
So
wherever it is.
you talked about how Dave was your mother's miscarriage,
Yes.
his soul. So
Mhm.
my
yes.
question is, wouldn't you go back and be another one of her future children, or was that no longer an opportunity and that's why you ended up in Iowa?
Well, not all miscarriages. Um, let's put it this way:
That was
there's lessons
another
in
thing
everything.
that I read in one of your books is when the soul enters the body.
Yes, that was in the
Yes.
manual. But
It's a very
most
interesting fact. Yeah.
most miscarriages are for lessons, Betsy. For instance, I was Dave's mother's miscarriage, and it happened at a time where she wasn't sure if she wanted to have children or not. And after miscarrying me, she and Dave's father, they thought and talked and that made them want children all the more. In my case, I was never supposed to have children because I had other things to do in this life. And it's really hard for women because women get together and what do? They talk about their children, their grandchildren. So, early on in my life, it was really hard. because that's what you're supposed to do. But now I understand I wasn't supposed to do that. Maybe if Dave and I would have gotten together when we were young, maybe the lesson would have been different. But now at this age, we had a purpose, and the purpose was to write books, to try and help people to get off the karmic wheel.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm putting in the work. After
You're
reading
put-
the manual,
you-
like I said, I am an interactive reader, so I'm putting in the work. I just want to know: is there a bell or a medal that shows up when I'm off?
A brownie?
Yeah, I'll
Yes.
take anything.
I think, Betsy, you will start to know. I think you'll start to feel that you're moving in the right path. Just the very fact that you said you're trying to figure out
I'm
how
putting
to
in the
approach
work.
it. You're trying to put in the work.
Yeah.
And I think now, I think putting in the work to get the reward may not be exactly the right approach. It's the same thing about going to church. Do you go to church because everybody expects you to be sitting at church and you want to draw the business to your private company? Or do you go to church because you want the fellowship and the experience? So you want to be good. And I don't like to even use the word good and evil, but you want to be good because that's how it's meant to be, so that you can continue to improve, so that you do get off the wheel.
Because remember, it's not what happens to you in life, it's what you choose to do with it. And Betsy, you seem so okay with the mud in your basement and getting past it and able to find the silver lining. And that's really, you should get a brownie for that.
We'll send you a brownie later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, and maybe it's well, maybe it also, here's another question. So when you go to the world life between lives,
Yep.
whereas sometimes you'll be here and you'll be female to male and humana. Are you androgynous there? Are you without?
Yeah.
And then
The soul has no gender, correct?
Correct. We
And
are
then-
all a combination of unique male and female qualities, if you want to call it that. And we even define those by society, but we actually have, people ask me sometimes, and I'll say, well, I can be in touch with my feminine side just as easy as my male side.
He wears pink shirts and he likes quiche.
That's
You
right.
have it.
yeah, I've never had
Check.
quiche. But and I'm not where my question is going is, if the case is that you're exploring this life to reach the end, to get off this karmic wheel, it seems like on average the female incarnation would be one of the final incarnations, because they're the ones that seem to be most interested in this subject and in exploring it and in working on it, where most men are very tactile and they like things, where this is more of an emotional person-based subject. So it seems like being a female would be kind of where I think that karmic will end would be reached mostly by incarnations as female.
That's an interesting comment. I would say being your best self doesn't have anything to do with what your sex is.
Well, yeah, I agree.
And
But
being created as a male in this life means you should be the best male. And if you want to use masculine things, that means you should be the best brother, the best father, the
Mhm.
best husband, the best that you can. And I think,
well, what I mean is, if studying this is an aspect of reaching the end, then you'll find more females would be open to explore this subject, where most males, on average, are more interested in the latest car or the latest gadget or the latest, and that's where their study will be concentrated.
I would
Unless they
say,
just don't want to admit it.
yeah. And Jared, I guess I could put it this way: the three most prominent researchers in reincarnation are Ian Stevenson, Jim Matlock, and Dr. Jim Tucker, and they're all male.
Yeah,
And
but
they,
are they looking at this from the emotional study side, or are they looking at it as a scientist? This is a new
Scientist.
amoeba that we've
Well-
got to break down.
well, they are looking at this much from a scientific point of view because they were all PhD trained psychiatrists or physicians and etc. Uh, if you look at, I mean, so yeah, I guess I can see your point there a little, but there are women who study this also. I guess I can see it from both sides there, Jared.
Yeah, I'm not making a dichotomy argument here. It's just men are usually, on average, the masculine is more enthralled by things and processes, and the feminine is more drawn to emotions and connectivity. And so I both will come to this, but I think the feminine would come to it from an aspect that would allow them openness to learn, where the men want to come in and figure out why and how and what's the mechanics underlying this, where the feminine will come in and say, how do I absolve or bring this into my life and harmonize with it.
I think that's where we work well together.
That's why we work well together. And Betsy and Jared, it's really interesting you're even saying that, because the person who asks the most questions about how and why this works is Carla. And the person between the two of us that's most concerned with the spiritual, religious, the aspect that has to do with how is God involved in this is me.
Yes, and
So-
You guys are
guys-
the opposite.
you guys flipped the
of Jared's
script and
argument.
still went for the same motivations are there as would be if me and Betsy explored it,
Mhm.
except you guys flipped the script. And that's not saying either of you are going about it wrong. I think that just means you're going to have a more well-rounded research into it where you look at it from both angles.
What lessons
Jared-
have you guys learned? Do you know?
What lesson?
Yeah, like in your past lives. Do you know?
I seem to remember a story about Egypt and Carla killed him.
Yeah.
That one stuck with me
I
because
poisoned him.
yeah,
But one of the obvious things here is in the manual, the way we behave has so much to do with our astrological sign, our trait, and our archetype.
100%. I
So-
went through my kids because I
Mhm.
know them. I think I know them on a level that's likely higher than I know most other people. And so
Aw.
I went through my kids and I was like, well, dang it.
your kids.
100%.
Yeah, her kids are the younger two. She's got a boy and a girl, and they fit the archetype of boy and girl. The boy wants monster trucks, cars, and video games, and the
Mhm.
girl is building crafts, making different. Hold
Is
on a
that you?
second. Yeah. What is going on here?
Okay, we're back.
All right, sorry about that.
But
That's okay.
outside of the things that they like, that sacred geometry and their personalities, just what
Mhm.
they're drawn to and the way they respond to things fits 100%.
It's amazing.
It's
Yeah.
it's crazy.
And I don't think it's taught to.
No, but it
I
should
don't
be.
think. I know they say that it's well, not they, but some people claim that these different drives are taught to them. But I think it comes neonatally. It comes in them because Tucker has been into these things since infancy, and your daughter has been into her things since infancy, and they've both been drawn to these things that are and they're both amazing at both of them. They both really excel at these things they love, and at the same time they express um the masculine and feminine drive the way they do it.
So do you guys keep a list? Because if I were you, I'd keep a list. See, I'm very analytical, so I'd be like, okay, here's the list of
It'd
stuff.
be on her fridge.
It would be on my fridge, and
She-
I'd be like, okay, this life, I learned this. Check. This life, I learned this. Check.
It'd
okay,
probably be
so...
a crafty calendar. There'd be string and stuff would be cut out of wood.
Well, Betsy, I mean,
We write
in,
books.
in all three of the books, we do talk about lessons that we learned in each one of those lives and things that we needed to be stressed. And again, across all three books, we talk about the basic categories of that are ego and it's interesting because if you read outside of this area, most people say the ego are those things that are associated with evil, the conceit, the selfishness, the jealousy, the unforgiveness, those parts, those are the things we have to overcome. And those things actually in the manual, we start to describe how you've had that problem in the past where you were selfish. And that affects your astrological sign in the next life.
Right.
And there are those things that are tied to the astrological sign that actually are your greatest fears. And those fears are all associated with selfishness. And there are 3 astrological signs that are completely tied to selfishness because those are what you had a problem with in your past life. And that's something you need to overcome in this life because they want to make sure you've learned that lesson. And actually, you're assigned a specific angel to help you with that so that someone will actually be in your back pocket trying to help you. And a lot of times if you're, Carla, you should give an example because you're better at the whole
Yeah, I'd like to go
signs.
through that. And is there
Okay.
an angel called Dopey, like on the 7 Dwarfs?
The angel's official name is Dopiel.
Okay,
Okay.
Dopey. Now I know what to address him as. When
I have it's inside the manual. I figured out who my kids' angels are, kind of like where they fall, what their personalities will be, and not just what they're interested in, but my little guy, as much as he's all boy, is so empathetic.
he's very sweet.
He's
Sweetest kid on earth.
Always worried about what's going on in other people's lives. How can he help? And that's part of the description.
So Betsy, have you tried to figure out, because we all know our astrological sign, but you have to evaluate yourself, and in your case, evaluate your children to try and guess what their trait is in their archetype. And when's your son's birthday?
4/3/12.
So he's an Aries.
Uh-huh.
But 369, numerology, what Isabella tells us is that in numerology, it's changed a lot, and that's why we didn't put it in the book, because of calendars and all of the things over the years. However, it's still kind of basic. In numerology, everything reduces down because God is 10. Everything reduces down to a smaller number. And his birthday is the 3rd, you said?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so 3, 6, 9. Anything that reduces down to 3, 6, or 9. My birthday is the 18th. When you add 1 and 8, you get a 9. So the people in the 3, 6, 9 category, a lot of times they're very heartfelt and empathetic, and I cry when I go down the road and I see a duck that just got hit, or if I see a dog that's walking behind me, I'm so upset all the time about it. The 1, 5, 7s, anything that reduces down to a 1, a 5, or a 7, they're kind of technical. Okay, good with computers and technical. I know the young people are all good with computers today because they grew up with it, but they're more technical.
That's just comparing them to us. I mean,
yes,
they might
true.
not be good at all compared to other people their age.
That's right. And the 2, 4, 8s, they're all business. Things tend to be just black and white with them. They don't see the gray.
No, I'm an 11. So does that make
you're
me
an 11?
a 2?
That makes
so
sense.
you're
makes you a
black and
2.
white. You're Mr. Black and White. You're all business.
Okay.
And that's another reason why you do not address your feelings like Betsy does. Betsy, what are you?
I'm a 2.
You're 2.
Oh.
And when's your birthday?
120. So I'm right on
120.
the cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius.
Yes, you
Correct.
are.
So-
And if you read up on Aquarians, you know what we're all about.
Yes. And so what I find is that I have to be careful who I'm talking to, because a lot of people don't recognize that cusp,
Hmm.
depending on the time I was born and all of that stuff, could swing either direction. But I definitely identify Aquarian if I look
Absolutely.
through,
Yeah.
all of the traits and
So,
things.
what does a Sagittarius do?
Where do you fall?
I don't know.
What-
Where, I mean,
Well,
what's your birthday?
11 December 75.
Okay, the 11th of December. All right. So in the manual, there is a chart, as
Mhm.
Betsy already mentioned, and I'll break them down.
I'll have Betsy
Aqu-
come up on my on our. She can work it out on our bedtime reading stories.
Yeah, there you
That's right.
go. And you won't want to sleep. You'll say, read me the next chapter.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll heat up some milk,
there you go.
get in
Wear
my
a
s-
nightgown.
my stocking cap and all that.
Hmm.
Absolutely. See, you're in touch with your feminine side.
Oh, I'm
right
very
there,
in
Jim.
touch with my feminine
Uh-huh.
side.
I like it.
Never doubt that.
I like it. So, Aquarian, Pisces, and Aries, they fall into Mariel's legion, which is the yellow angel of selfishness. Now, when I first found that out, I was horrified, and I said, I'm not selfish. That's terrible. Isabella reminded me that this is what I acted like in my last life or a previous life. And
Egypt.
I was given this angel to overcome it in this life.
Carla,
So-
can I make a comment?
So
Sure.
it doesn't have to be the past one; it can be anywhere.
Okay.
in the
A close
past.
one.
Okay.
A very close. So, Betsy, I'll go back in our past lives, because the life before this one, Carla and I both fell to our death from a stairway at very young age. So we really had no time in that life to deal with our past life karma from the life before. The life before that was Ruby and JJ,
The flapper and junior
Yeah.
banker.
okay, who had a relationship based on really they wanted this relationship to happen. They were really making selfish choices in that life. They could have made a choice to leave, or a choice not to have the problems that they had faced. They both ended up killed because they were making selfish choices,
Mm.
choices based on their own personal needs and etc. in that life. So in this life, because the next life we died as children, so we
Mhm.
really didn't have a chance to face anything. And then this life, we have the angel of selfishness helping us not be selfish.
So in my past life regression, it was probably, I would say probably the most recent past life that was brought up. I committed suicide. That seems like the most selfish thing that a person could do. Now, I think I have a different view of it now, having suffered through this life, because I found myself feeling very much like I could end my life. Like it was just a matter of fact. I could just do it. And I was able to look at it from a different point of view. But would something like that in a past life get me in the selfish category to learn this life?
Well, you are on the
Absolutely.
cusp of selfishness and unforgiveness.
And
Yeah.
so, and
And
if you
remember,
think
you
about
need
it,
to forgive yourself too.
yeah. And so if you think about it, not only do you, just like Carla said, you have to forgive yourself for killing yourself in the past, and you can't make such a selfish act like as you did last time, because it was only about you. There's no way suicide is about anybody else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the fact that you come back right at the cusp of making those two decisions, it's probably exactly what you had to deal with.
Wow.
Interesting.
So you said that you guys died young in your most recent life. Is
Mhm.
the
Yes.
date that you exit predetermined?
Ooh.
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Okay, because you still have free will decisions throughout life, so you can certainly live a life you made a choice in that past life to commit suicide.
Sure.
If you hadn't done that, you would have reached a different age.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now, certainly the circumstances and things you're going to have to face are sort of predetermined. And people get really freaky when they start talking about, is part of our life predetermined, part of our life not?
Yeah.
But there has to be some situations that we're placed in. And if you believe in a God, God can place you in a situation knowing what's going to happen, but still give you complete free will to change it as you go. God might know what you're going to make all those choices, but lets the choices be yours.
Mm.
Interesting.
So now back to my selfishness, even though I'm not her.
You're not.
You're
You're not.
not.
You're not selfish.
You
Yeah,
don't
what's-
fall under that, Jared.
Yeah.
So
Let me
let's
go
go to
past
Jared.
the Aquarius, Pisces, and Aries. They're in one group. And then Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer, they fall under the pink angel of conceit, which is under Shamuel's Legion. And then we go to Leo, Virgo, and Libra. They fall under Raphael's Legion, the green angel of jealousy. And then we come to Scorpio, Sagittarian, and Capricorn. They fall under unforgiveness.
Oh, so I need to learn to forgive.
And
Okay.
considering that you are a 248, black and white,
Uh-huh.
it's going to be even harder because you have to make up your mind and say, that's it, I'm done. I'm not going to somewhat forgive. I'm going to forgive. But see how interesting they work together. God made it a little bit more difficult because you're not only are you a 248, you're a Sagittarian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sagittarians usually think their way is the best way. And
We know it.
I
do you think?
know.
I don't
So
know where
you got the triple whammy. Now
So-
the
So you
thing
think
is,
you know
have
you're
to
right.
overcome it.
You see everything in black and white, and
Mhm.
you're here to learn to forgive, even
Yeah.
though you're right.
Man, I'm so mad at myself for choosing this path. I don't
But
know if I can.
Dave-
No,
Yes.
actually, in my personal life, I'm actually really good at forgiveness. I'd like to think in my
You
group.
don't hold grudges. No.
I don't hold grudges. I
That's good.
I let stuff wash off. But in exterior parts, like things that I don't honestly touch, I have a harder time with forgiveness and seeing the other side sometimes. In
Very black and white.
political matters
Oh.
and things like that. I'm very stern, and I'm not. And I sit outside of the political dichotomy that exists. I sit way outside of that, so I
Me too.
sit and judge both sides really
Mhm.
harshly.
Well, you have to because, my glass is half full, and I want to believe, and Isabella says we should want to believe that everybody going into office is doing it in the beginning for the right reasons. And they just see things differently. And of course, we're not supposed to judge people. We're supposed to try and look at everything from everybody else's point of view. That's not always easy. That's why we keep coming back. And of course, what is the thing I have to work on all the time besides the selfishness thing? Patience.
Mm,
Patience falls under what? Ego,
yeah,
because
Mhm.
I want to hurry up and get it done. But one of the things Dave normally mentions that he did not is that 40 to 50% of our reactions are due to our astrological sign, our trait, and our archetype. 10% is based on our environment, and you can pass this on to your children.
100%.
Like, for instance, if you're an alcoholic, sometimes that passes on. And then 40 to 50% is free will.
Mhm.
So you can't blame it all on what God, the creator, the intelligent
Look at
creator
this
did,
mess
because,
I've been dropped in. Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Well,
it sort of falls into 50-50. So if you want to think that God made a plan, God was sort of partnering with this plan. Here, I'm going to
Mhm.
give you some of the parts because I know you need to learn, and I'm going to let you try to learn. And so the free will is your ability to try to face it and learn and try to grow. Part of it's the circumstances that you have to get through.
So this unseen residual has come up in many conversations. Most recently with a person we were interviewing. She does soul constellations. So we drag this residual from our past lives unknowingly into the next one. And do we do that until it's resolved?
Mhm.
And then is there a possibility for us to just go and mess that up again?
Oh,
Absolutely.
I think.
Well, we
Absolutely.
have.
I think I approve of
Absolutely.
that.
Because
You know,
I want to keep relearning this stuff.
I
So-
think I
so-
can. I mean, I
But
know it's
Betsy,
my
you
first
know
go
it deep
around.
down.
So from a using a little bit of science background, if everything you do in your current life is recorded in your subconscious as both a positive and a negative, it's called the modular theory. It's related to locations in the brain that save certain parts of all experiences, and they're all recorded as positive and negative. And so even in this life, you make decisions sometimes very fast because you've already experienced it before.
Oh.
And so some of our things are almost reflex decisions. You know, there's the easy decision, you know, if Jared's walking in the forest and he sees the wolf, he will run. Because somewhere in his past, in this life, he's noticed wolves are dangerous. In his past life, he may have been eaten by a wolf. So everything in this world, in this particular life, it comes as positive and negative. Everything in your past life comes as positive and negative. It's really your free will that lets you overcome some of that. So if you know you're afraid of the wolf, but the wolf has the thorn in its paw, you can overcome your fear of the wolf and pull out the thorn. And so you can not have to come back because you didn't hurt the wolf.
So everything's positive and negative. There's nothing that's like morally neutral. Like I like to think that me not cleaning my bathroom sink is morally neutral. And that
Okay.
sometimes when I leave dishes in the sink for 2 days, it's morally neutral.
Yeah.
Is it hurting
Oh,
anybody?
Okay, Betsy, you're going to go to a spot that some people may be uncomfortable with, but I'm going to just say there must be some moral objective. Most people start to have an argument and discussion on whether that's God or not. But if there is no God, then the moral objective, the break even point or the 0 point, because it could be just a little negative or a little bit positive. So maybe it's a little negative if you don't clean your sink. Not very negative. But
Well, it
if
depends
there's
on
no-
what's on those plates.
Correct.
Because if you haven't cleaned your sink and you ate something that isn't gonna
You
go
get
rancid,
Ebola.
you're fine.
there-
But if you
Yeah,
if you have
if there
if you
is
had
if there is no point of moral objective good, then there is no, if there's no 1 point, then there is no definition of moral good or moral not. It's everybody live for themselves. There is no evil,
Yeah.
there is no good, there is no reason. Anything you want to do, you can, because at the very most it could be, if there is no God, no moral objective, at the very least it could be is some sort of consensus. So it'd be a vote, and the vote would change every day. So you could never decide. You could never get off the karmic wheel, because there must be some absolute point that is objective. And the other thing, Betsy, is we frequently say God probably has to grade on a curve. Okay,
I would think.
I would think
I
so,
hadn't
because
thought about that until now, but yes, I would think.
yeah, that would, if he didn't, well, there'd be a lot of hell, wouldn't there? Just be
Mhm.
yeah, well, that's
Kinda-
the old joke. If
kind of oodled.
if
It'd be swollen at the seams.
yes, hell would be full and heaven would be empty.
But Betsy, if you're not doing the dishes because you're spending time with your children,
Then that becomes morally positive.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And if it's
Okay.
not
Yeah.
harming anybody, you know, you
Right.
can be your best self, but if you're spending time, valuable time with your children or your animal or your husband or whatever the case may be, then I wouldn't worry about the dishes. As my mother would say, the dishes will be there, but your children will grow up.
True.
that's
I
very
like
true.
that.
And that's something that
Mhm.
I'm trying to work on in my life. My shortcoming lately has been living. I don't know. I don't know how to conceptualize this, but taking the moments to live, and I don't know, just saying yes to things, and going out, because I've been rather hermetic lately, and I'm trying to become less of that. But I wanted to just real quick jump back, because we're coming up on the end. Who's my angel again? What was the name? Not Dopiel, because I know we made that up.
Well,
He's gonna get a tattoo.
technically,
Angel
I
Dopiel.
crap you not. If I ever get a tattoo right after the double M's that I'm getting Dopey with angel wings and a sword and a bronze chest piece and flowing hair, and that will. But anyway, so who was my angel again?
you have the red angel of unforgiveness from Uriel's Legion.
Uriel.
And
Uriel,
I will
okay.
just tell you, this is just, and Betsy probably read this in the book. Uriel appears at all atonements, at all, whenever you have your life between lives. Uriel appears at every single one.
He just can't let it go, can he? Can't
No, because
forgive.
he lives in black and white. No, I'm
Oh.
only kidding.
Anyway,
Could
so
be a
What's next for you guys?
Yeah.
I've read all 3 of the books. Highly, highly recommend them.
mhm. I've
List,
read the inserts of them.
list them out for our
We
our
appreciate that,
viewers.
Jared.
Betsy, we appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
love them.
I want to read them. I truly do, but
I give him the highlights. I'm like, oh my gosh,
so
I read this today.
I read them
Cool.
by proxy.
Yes.
Very good. And you can
So-
trust your sister.
I can.
Yes.
I can. Yes.
So for our viewers, tell them the books and where they can find them.
Yeah. Let's
Um,
plug them.
The 3 books are The Gift of Past Lives with Mother Isabella, God, and Elizabeth. The second book is Hell No Reincarnation with Mother Isabella, God, and Elizabeth, which is where we kind of looked at religion and some of the research related to reincarnation and how we could kind of deal with the fact that Carla was raised Mormon and then Catholic, and I was
Catholic and
raised
then Mormon.
Catholic, then Mormon, and I was raised Catholic.
We were both raised Mormon.
And so
Yay.
trying to reconcile some of our religious beliefs with religion.
Now, if you look
And
right
with
over
reincarnation.
Betsy's shoulder there, you can see my drifted away from Mormon. I have built a kegerator because I enjoy brewing beer.
A kegerator. I like it. Now, you could look at the kegerator as a gift you're giving back, so it could be very positive.
Oh,
Yes.
it is. It is. I'm a man of the people. I just
Yes.
brewed. I just got done. It right now. It's fermenting. I brewed a jalapeno IPA. I'm dying to try.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Jared, the third book is the manual. And it's sort of gives you a little bit of a cookbook, a little bit of a plan. In the front
It's
of
just
the,
like a manual. It's a how-to.
Yeah.
How
how
to
do you
get
look it up and try to figure it out. Who do you connect with? Who do you ask for help? How do you reach God, your angel, your spirit guide? Try to get them to help you get through the struggles that you're having so you don't have to repeat the same struggles again.
So for me, your 3 books kind of felt like the Star Wars series, where I felt like at the end of the manual, I was like, I needed this first.
Well, we had to tell
So
you
would
who
you
we
suggest
were.
them reading them in the opposite order, or
Mm-mm.
start with the mother, then go to Hell
Mhm.
No Reincarnation, and then go to the manual?
Yeah, the reason I say that is because there's a lot of people that write books, and Dave and I are just normal, everyday people. We just wanted to share what happened to us, what our experience was, and why we got started. We didn't just randomly come up with this information. Dave talks to Isabella, and she gives us the information, and then we put it in story form. We're not making this stuff up. This is actually coming from his spirit guide. Okay. So if you read our story and then how we try to reconcile our upbringing with our experience,
Mhm.
and then the third book, the manual, we're trying to tell people this is what you have to do. It's pretty easy. Our website is The Gift of Past Lives, or I'm sorry, it's thegiftofpastlives.com. And you can get those books, all three of the books there, or the usual places, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. And we are working on it just went to print, our fourth book.
Oh,
It's called Her Huba and His Rose, and it's totally different than all of our other books. It's actually a love story. It's a historical novel.
okay.
Awesome.
Now
Yeah.
I'm gonna put links to all your books in the show notes, and a link to your website and all of that. And I can't wait to talk to you guys again when the new book comes out, and I'm gonna have Betsy run me through the manual, and we'll get. I just have
She'll
one
help
question.
you.
Yeah, she'll give me
I'll
the
give him a
roadmap.
crayon,
Yeah, crayon.
a big pad of
And
paper.
I was Army, so I can be trusted with a crayon. I will not eat it.
Uh,
Markers,
well,
different
Betsy, you'll
story.
need to tell him, you'll have to evaluate Jared and tell him who you think his what his trait is and what his archetype is, and then let Jared do it and see how accurate you believe he
Ooh,
is.
yeah, that'd be a fun game, and we're gonna go through it. I think we'll go through it, bring it up on the show one day, send you guys a note, and have you guys rate how we did.
Okay,
All right.
cool.
Hey, Jared, this is just an interesting point for you. One of the characters in our fourth book name is Jared.
Oh, now there was a brother of Jared in the Mormon religion. I can't pronounce his name, which is why they called him the brother of Jared, because he had a brother named Jared, and his name was much easier. I have friends who can pronounce it, but it's a long name and it looks like gibberish. But I had one question. Now, you get off the karmic wheel, you complete all your stuff, you're up there chilling with Gandhi, but you want another round at life.
Yeah, do you want?
You just
wait,
can you
does
say, hey,
anybody want another round?
I just want to pop in
Okay.
for 80 years. You pop down for 80 years. Can that
All
be
right.
done?
Jared, I'm going to explain this just for you. So you could get done in this life. Go up in the plains where you're closer and closer to God, and God could ask you to come back because there are people that need your help. And I don't believe anybody has ever turned God down and there are people who've come back.
I imagine from what I've read about the dude, it'd be pretty hard to say no.
It would be pretty hard to say
Throwing
no.
it out there, it'd
Now,
be
Remember,
a rough go.
dudette.
Yeah.
There's no gender.
Oh,
God
yeah.
is masculine
yes,
and
both
feminine.
dude and dudette. That I like
Yeah.
that.
Angels are masculine and feminine. Spirit guides are masculine and feminine. Us in the spirit world, we're masculine and feminine. We're just as important.
We're ethereal. See, it'd be
So
tough.
here's the point, Jared. I had to tell you though. We know people who've come back to help others.
Mhm.
And many of them have had to go through 6, 7, 8, 9 more lives to go back to heaven permanently again.
So
Because
they come back down. They revoke.
they came to help because they were requested, but unfortunately, the world that we live in is not easy, and it's
And
hard not to cause karma.
They came
It's not-
down and they gave in
and
to
they
sin.
and they started to develop some karma again, and then they had to come back and deal with that karma.
That'd
So I don't think
that'd be my luck. I need you to go down and help this person. You bet it, boss. I'm on my way. Come down.
Screw it up day one.
Yeah, right out the chute. Right out the chute. It'd just be,
Oh.
and that's when you'd hear the bell. It'd be right then and there. Like, oh, dang it.
Well, there in the manual, Betsy can show you, there is a diagram of the different planes.
Mhm.
And if you make it to the fourth plane, that's when, if you are staying on the fourth plane, that's when God will say to you, do you want to go back? If you make it to the fifth plane, you're not going back. And your vibration raises as you go up those levels, if you want to call it a vibration.
I dig it. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. This
Thanks
has
for having
been
us.
Stuff.
It's
Yes.
always a pleasure to be
If
with
Yeah.
you
you
guys.
if our listeners have not had an opportunity to go and buy these 3 books, highly recommend.
Yeah, jump in the show notes.
Super interesting stuff.
If I can throw out there, if you're going to buy these books, either buy them through the website and support them directly, or go to a local bookstore, something that owned by someone in your neighborhood. We've given enough money to Amazon this last year, and to
I
Yes.
did.
You
yeah,
can order it from, you can walk into a local bookstore and they can order it.
yeah, go into your local bookstore, build that relationship with a guy that's probably having a rough couple of years. Build that relationship, order all your books through them, find local. But anyways, I just want to throw that out there. Big push. I'm gonna
That's
throw out everything.
fantastic, Jared.
Jared,
Yes,
you just
you
fixed
are a
2 or
wonderful
3 more
person.
karmic points right there.
Oh,
Yes.
who knows?
Just
That's
like
so
that.
nice.
I mean, I don't like to throw myself up on the cross, guys, but
Day
Thank-
1, blew it.
yeah, there it is. And I just gained a few back.
Uh-oh.
Who knew?
Uh-oh.
All right, thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
It was great to see you guys.
Yes, and we will
Thank you.
hopefully talk to you again real soon.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for reading, Betsy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Love
and
it.
I apologize for not.
It's
I haven't
okay.
read anything. And please, if we can ever offer any help, or you need to just make an announcement, just reach out. We'll throw you on for sure. Always
Thank
you.
fun conversation.
Thanks.
As always, Betsy, the nails rock.
Oh, thank you.